Donald Trump's insecurity is such that even the concept of a dictatorship and authoritarianism has such little value in history to him that he will take those phrases, he will take those definitions and use them for electioneering purposes. That's what we're dealing with. A person who sees the value of a dictatorship as something to celebrate, as something to post about, to be proud of, and to own the moniker. And, let's be very clear. Donald Trump loves dictators. He celebrates them. He sees people like Putin and Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un as to be celebrated because of their strength and their ability to handle, in the case of Xi Jinping, he talks about 1.4 billion people and he rules them with an iron fist. And he says it with a smile on his face. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a man who is thrilled to be lined up as the next big dictator. Because in his mind, he's thinking, I've got 330 million Americans that I can dictate over, and I can, in turn, then be on the list of the great dictators of history. That is the narcissism, the malignant narcissism, the personality disorder that we are having to deal with. The fact that when America sleepwalked into authoritarianism, it came in the form of Donald Trump's naivety, his insecurity, and the fact that the only people that he connects with are these dictators. The way he talks about Viktor Orban, the way he talks about President Erdogan of Turkey, the way he really celebrates people who have atrocious human rights records. He talks about Xi Jinping and says, people expect me to call him stupid, but I'm not calling him stupid because look what he does. Look at the way he rules. He cannot understand that nobody is asking him to question their intelligence, but only to look at their record. And in the case of China, their human rights record. In the case of Vladimir Putin in Russia, imprisoning and now disappearing the opposition in the form of Alexei Navalny. All of these characters, in North Korea, if you commit a crime, your entire family goes to prison. Not just you, your entire family. I wonder if Donald Trump has ever really considered the detail in how these dictators run their countries. Or maybe he has, and that's something that he wants to, because he did suggest shooting immigrants trying to cross the southern border in the legs. He certainly separated children from their parents and put them in cages. And when it came to a worldwide pandemic, his response in the US was, well, it's just going to go away in a couple of days. And there's nothing to worry about. Because, of course, there was an election for him to worry about. And so, really, when, he talks about being a day one dictator, we have to look at his record of what he did during those first 4 years that he was president. And, disappearing people off the streets of Portland at peaceful protests, or buzzing people with military helicopters in Lafayette Square, and then gassing civilians, American citizens, as he went to do his photo op. These types of things, in my view, are the fascism that he claims that he will only do dictator-wise on day one. He was already a dictator. He was prevented from having the military parades and really kind of ramping up that kind of militarized aspect of his dictatorship, although admittedly the National Guard were on the streets as the local shops and stores were boarded up because of people protesting Trump's policies. I think it's very easy to forget quite how bad it was during those 4 years, and to claim that he'll be a day one dictator is just foolish, and Sean Hannity's questioning about him being a day one dictator was just ridiculous. You don't ask someone if they're going to be a dictator when they've already been a dictator. You don't ban every Muslim from entering the US and claim that that's not an authoritarian position. You cannot discriminate against people based on their religion in America. If you bother to read the Constitution, not something that he chose to do. And of course, he has promised that the Muslim ban will be back on day one of his next presidency. So what are we dealing with now? Somebody who promotes the word dictator and dictatorship on their Truth Social posts, somebody who enjoys the brand, who recognizes that actually for him, a dictatorship is a badge of honor. It's actually like the military stripes that he didn't get because he didn't go into the military because of those invisible bone spurs. And to really understand Donald Trump, you will recognize that the man is unraveling. The pressure of these court appearances and of these legal cases against him for the most serious crimes in history, of course, an insurrection against the United States on the theft of classified documents, very serious things. It's starting to get to him. And so the way that he chooses to deal with it is instead of taking a step back and thinking, he's actually going on the attack and rising to the occasion of being the character, taking on the role that the media and critics claim that he is. He was never really inside a dictator. He's always been a weak, lonely, and very sad individual. But it adds to his brand, his Trump brand, his brand of strength and power to be labeled a dictator. He loves it. He, as we know, read Hitler speeches, has recently been copying Hitler quotes, talking about poisoning the blood of the country. And, this stuff is not the stuff of fantasy. This is actually happening. This guy is officially the leading contender for the Republican primary. And yet we're having to ourselves contend with the fact that he is taking on this role of dictator, of authoritarian, and of autocrat. He's proud of it. He loves it. He's not shying away from it. And as the pressure on him builds over the next 10 months, he will ramp up the attacks, the insanity, the abuse, the craziness, and most importantly, the fascism that does not ignore or deny that America is not just sleepwalking into authoritarianism or dictatorship, but fascism. And historians will look back and say, well, how did it happen? And the answer is that we didn't take the threat seriously. Well, I'm sounding the alarm. Many other independent journalists and even legacy media are starting to ring the bell and say, stop, listen, you have a choice. There is a crossroads in America's political and historical timeline. You choose dictatorship with Donald Trump or democracy with Joe Biden. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5-Minute News Podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Thanks so much for watching. We're only a few subscribers short of 2 million subs. Please subscribe right now to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel for free and help us grow this unapologetically pro-democracy network.